Welcome to 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. Empowering women like you to amplify your voice, your message, your movement. We believe that if 10,000 new women stepped into high-level leadership platforms, we can transform the industries across the planet. 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. And now your host, Narissa Street.
Hi, folks. Thank you so much. We have with us today Shannan E. Johnson, also known as the Professional Pen. She is a script consultant for folks who want to write for television and film professionally. And today, find out how she, as a creative professional, has been able to manage a career not only in the LA world, but on Broadway, and how she went from chasing her passion to understanding her worth. Shannan E. Johnson, how you doing?
Yes, hello. How are you? Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here.
I just would have been working in front of my computer. I wouldn't have been doing too much else.
But your career is very, very important. So we're excited. The things that you do, the writing that you do is very important, changing the landscape of storytelling. So we're excited you took this time out today. So let's get right into it. So first of all, for our listeners, who are you?
Such a big question. So as you stated, I'm Shannan E. Johnson. I am originally from Houston, Texas. And I have lived in how many states? I've lived in Texas. I've lived in California. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in Maryland and the District of Columbia, if we want to call it its own little place. Hopping around and in one phase or the other being in the entertainment industry. So I am currently a script consultant. So I help develop creatives and their content. I believe that if you develop the writer, the content will come. So I'm kind of a teacher in a way. But I've also been a performing artist and teaching artist, doing Broadway national tours and in a dance company. So I've done a little bit of everything just because, if I wake up and decide there's something I want to try, I take the leap.
Okay, that's an amazing, that's a great way to think about it. If there's something that you want to try, you take the leap. And of course, being in the dance field, the leap is probably so like what is it? A pas de deux, something?
Yes.
Leap. Yeah. I'm not even going to try to. Yeah. So let's move on. Okay. So then, okay. You feel, so what I'm hearing from you and the fact that you've been moving around and things like that, it feels like you're somebody who's following your heart or following your intuition. So you're doing the work right now. And we talked about it, the Professional Pen. How did you get your start in the work that you're doing right now?
Well, everybody has that origin story of, being creative from the day you came out of the womb kind of thing, right? And I've always wanted to be a writer. I had my third grade teacher say to me when she gave the class our first descriptive writing assignment, and I spent like a paragraph on a blade of grass. And she said to me, then you should be a writer. And, when you're in elementary school, your teachers are everything. You're learning everything from them and their voices speak into you. And she told me then I should be a writer. And from that moment on, that's what I wanted to be. It wasn't until I was in my senior year of college, I was getting my degrees in English and journalism because I had decided I wanted to be an author because that's all I knew. And, but I knew that you don't make money as an author, overnight. So I was going to go into magazine writing as my day job and, write fiction, on the side until I became, huge, right? But in my senior year in college, my mother sent me an article from Essence magazine about a Black female television writer. And it wasn't until then that I realized that there were people who write directly for the screen. I just assumed in my little, Houston, Texas mind that someone writes a novel and somehow, some way it's produced into what you see on the screen. I didn't know that someone writes directly for the screen. So that's when I decided I wanted to go to graduate school. And in between undergrad and graduate school, because I made this decision way late, so I wasn't able to enroll until 2 years later. So in between time, I moved out to LA so that I can just immerse myself in the industry because I knew nothing. So I came out here, slept on floors, slept on couches, did what I had to do. I almost slept in my car one night, almost. But I was an intern. I lied actually and said that I was a student so that I could end up being an intern, because in LA, we usually only have kind of credit-based internships. There aren't very many income-based internships. So I lied and said I was a student so that I could intern. And then I was a production assistant. I was just going everywhere so I can learn everything. Then I went to film school with the intention of becoming a writer. And at Florida State, our writers program only has 6 students. And we do screenwriting, television writing, playwriting, and creative writing. So our program is actually kind of like a fellowship between the film school, the theater school, the School of Theater, and the creative writing department. So we work together and spend full semesters in each of those types of writing. So while I was there was the first time I actually went into any kind of workshopping of my writing, because before then I just wrote in my own time. I hadn't really taken any writing classes. And so it was during that time that one of my instructors said to me, it was shady in the moment, but it helped me. He said, "Why are you so great at helping other people out of their problems, but you can't do that for yourself?" Right? And of course, if you let your ego get in the way, you hear you're bad. You're a bad writer. I already know I'm not a bad writer, so I didn't jump to that conclusion. But what it opened up for me was, this is the part of the process I like. I like helping other people get out of their problems. Me reading a screenplay is like people doing a puzzle. The problems jump out at me and the solutions become clear, and I nerd out in it. So had he not said that to me, and he wasn't saying it to me to tell me to go into development or anything, he was saying it to me to be shady, to talk about, my writing. But I heard it and said, you just opened up this whole world that I had not even considered. So when I graduated from graduate school, instead of going the writer's route, I went the development executive route, because I wanted to help people to make their content. So I ended up at the Sci-Fi Channel in a junior executive position where I learned how to help people go from pitch to production. And that's when I left 2 years later and joined a dance company, because I was 28. So it was like now or never. And during that time, I was a performing artist for about 8 years. And during that time, people were still contacting me to help them develop their screenplays. And people were contacting me to edit their books. And so I was kind of doing it on the side. I had no intention of making it my full-time job. It was just, I'm a performing artist. All performing artists need side hustles because it's contract to contract life. So you're in contract and you're making $1, and you're out of contract and you're making no dollars. So I was doing that kind of on the side. And when I finished in 2018, the clients just kind of started coming to me. Like, I wasn't looking for them, but they just started coming. So when I moved back to LA, it was my intention to just still do this thing on the side until someone hires me. But by the time I got back to LA a decade later, nobody knows who I am. And LA is all about who you know, not what you know. And what I know is that I know story very well. But since they don't know me, they don't know that I know story. So I sent out hundreds of emails and my resumes and everything, and I never got a call back. So I said, all right, since they won't let me in the door, I'm gonna go in through the ceiling, and I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing and doing well, turn that into my full-time job. And here we are 2 years later, and this is what is getting me into some of those doors that I couldn't get into when I was sending my resume.
That's amazing. So there's a lot of things that you said there, and I like to pull things out for the audience to make sure that they heard it. So yeah. A couple of things. Number one, in the very beginning, that you had an idea of, okay, this is what I want to do, and I want to be a writer, but I know that writers don't make money right off, in the beginning. And I think what a lot of people don't understand about some of these higher level professions is that they have, as one of my mentors says, a long runway, right? And so if you're thinking about going into a creative profession, it's not the stuff that you've heard, or you'll never make money in it. No, you won't make money in it immediately, right? So having that, knowing that that's the mindset, and then being able then to structure systems around yourself. That's what I heard as well, that you were able to structure some systems around yourself so that you can continue to go on that runway before it took off, right?
It's the whole, don't quit your day job.
Right.
You know what I mean? Writing is not one of those professions where you quit your day job. You have to be able to still suffice and be able to pay your bills and make sure your kids are okay and your spouse is okay, while taking the time to pour into your craft. Like, you have to be able to do them at the same time, because being a performing artist in screenwriting, it's still contractual. So if you're on a writing staff, you're on the writing staff for a couple of months and then it ends. Did you make enough money in those couple of months to suffice your lifestyle for the rest of the year? Maybe for some people, maybe not for others. If you're writing a feature, you might have been working on this one feature for 5 years. You sold it. Maybe you did make $100,000, but that's $100,000. So what happens when that's done? Do you have another feature that gets sold? Just because you write another one doesn't mean it'll actually get sold. So you still live in that side hustle, a day job kind of,
And I think, so then I want to talk to you about that as well. I consider it a little bit, like maybe not side hustle, but more practice. Like, this is your practice. So you're always showing up. So can you talk about your practice? Like, so this is the practice that you have of making sure that there is an income coming in, that income is always, on its way into you in some way, shape, or form. And I know you were talking about the clients just came, but the clients knew what they were coming to, so I'm thinking that as they're coming to you, you're prepared to take them, right? Mm-hmm. And they also, they're coming to you because, did they come by referrals? Did they come because you had a website up? Mm-hmm. Like, so dig into that a little bit more, because like the clients just came. I know people hear that and they're like, "Oh wow, she's so lucky." I'm like, no, I there's more there. So
yeah, when it comes to the writing portion, when I say the clients just came, I mean that people in my circle know who I am and know what my skill sets are. I was not marketing them, right? So as a kid, I was the weirdo who said I wanted to be a writer. When maybe in 2020, you meet a kid who says they want to be a writer. But, back in the 80s, what do you want to be when you grow up? An astronaut, a nurse, a doctor, a firefighter. I was already a weird person saying I wanted to be a writer, at that age. So everybody has always known me as the creative person. Everybody also knows me as the grammar police. I love the English language. Love it. And I'm that person who gets offended when people misuse it, especially in the written form. And again, my degrees are in English and journalism, one of two very specific areas that have a structure and rules for how you write. And so I think people just knew that about me. So my first X amount of clients were not people I was looking for. I didn't have a website. I didn't even have a rate yet. So a lot of those people, I'm calling them clients, but they weren't paying me anything. They were just, I'm that person. Hey, can you look at this for me? Hey, can you do blah, blah, blah. And because I was a performing artist who was living a contract to contract life, it finally hit me. Well, maybe I should be charging them because I'm using my time to help them. And so that was kind of like the start of it. It really wasn't something I was looking for. But because of that, what I also tell people is, a lot of the times we're going after these things that we want. And there's like this, not to get biblical with it, but this small, still voice that's saying to you, you know what you're really good at? you like, do you know like what you could do really well and also really naturally and really easily? And so being a performing artist was something I loved, right? And it took a lot of energy and a lot of work, and sometimes more work than reward. Being a script consultant is something that comes so naturally to me that I don't even have to think about it. So yes, the clients just came. And because they came, I realized there's a business here and I should start to, do something with it. I've had an Instagram page since, I don't know, let's say 2015, but I didn't really get any followers until 2018 when I decided I'm going to focus on this. But before then, it was just like, oh, I'll post something every now and again, whatever. I hadn't really gotten my brand together because I wasn't trying to. But I said, well, if I can make a little side money, then let me go ahead and put up something and have my rates written down. So when people contact me, I can help them through that. But for the most part, things were just coming by referral. And it wasn't until 2018 when I moved to New York. I was like, I'm going to be here for 3 months and I'm going to audition every day. And I have to book something big enough that can sustain me. Because at this point, I'm in my mid-30s and I'm tired of only making $1 for all the work I'm doing. So right. I'm like, okay, Broadway, give me something that can sustain me. And while I was there, I was getting turned away from auditions. I didn't even get a chance to audition. So it's not like I'm auditioning and they're saying, thank you, no, thank you. I'm not even getting an opportunity to get in there. I'm getting up every morning, getting on the subway. I'm sweaty. I've, worked out. I've warmed up my voice. I go in the restroom at the place, put my makeup on, do my hair, do my clothes, walk up to the door and they're like, no, thank you. We're not seeing non-equity people or no, thank you. We're closed for the day. And I'm doing this every day for 3 months. While I'm doing that, I am getting requests from people more than I had ever had about being on their screenplays. And so while I'm in New York, I'm talking to God saying, okay, God, I know you didn't bring me out here for nothing. New York is probably the opposite of who I am as a person from Houston, Texas. So I'm like, I know you didn't bring me out here with these subways and all this walking and all this everything for nothing. Why am I here? And I believe I needed to be there trying while he was also putting this other thing in my lap. And so then I said, okay, fine, I'm gonna start focusing on that. I'm in New York, but I'm gonna focus on this. So I started contacting different organizations to see if they may need help with hosting screenwriting workshops. And I contacted the Black Film Space and they invited me to come. Yes. And they invited me to come to host one of their workshops. Yeah. And after that, they enjoyed me so much that I got some of my, next few clients from that meeting. And since then, I have been doing this full time. I ended up booking something and I ended up calling them. And I'm not a person who goes back on my word. I don't know if I had signed the contract yet, but I felt it so tough that going to take that gig was taking away from what I was supposed to be doing, what my purpose was. So I called them and I canceled doing the show. I was supposed to do The Wiz and I canceled and moved to LA with no job and no place to live, within a week. And so I've just been doing it.
Hey, this is a great episode, right? Want to carry the insight from our show wherever you go? Visit myjoyisvaluable.com for the best resources that we've gathered that are inspired by expert guests. Find support for your business, tools to organize your life, and more. That's myjoyisvaluable.com.
But what you moved on, I know you said you moved on things where you had an assurance that wasn't a physical assurance, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, no job, no place to live, but
I knew
confirmation and conviction, right? Mm-hmm. So you'd already heard, all the stuff that was saying, mm-hmm. This is what you should be doing. Yeah, I see that you're trying, and I see that this is what you want to try, and maybe this is cute. That's what spirit does sometimes. This is cute.
This is cute.
This is what I'm giving you. Yeah. So, Spirit works with you however it needs to, so.
And once I started listening, it's easy. Effortless.
It's effortless.
It really has been, because I'm not I'm not a marketing major. You know what I'm saying? I don't know anything about social media. I had to learn all of that stuff. But of all the different social media accounts I was running, people kept giving me compliments on the professional pen. Your brand is so tight, and I'm just like, and I'm not even trying. It's just me. It's my voice and I understand it. So it's easy for me to put it out there. And I think that attracts people to me a lot because when they see my brand, they see me and they go, oh, she seems like someone I can trust.
Right.
Well,
what I mean? It's an authenticity conversation. I had a conversation with Tyler McCall, and he was talking about with the social media, the authenticity is what pulls you apart from every other carbon copy that's out there.
Mm-hmm. And I think hard for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing also as a writer, and I'm sure you work with writers and you tell them this all the time. I have students, screenwriting students, and they are dying for me to tell them what to write. And I say, write what you know, write your voice,
Mm-hmm.
But
like, what's that?
yeah. But it's fun because when they really start to, go after the thing that has been, scratching at the back of their head, when it comes out, you're like,
yeah,
people need to hear this story.
Yeah.
And I think it's the authenticity that we're missing. So one of the things that you touched on, which I thought was really interesting, is that there was the juxtaposition of, okay, I graduated from FSU and I'm going into development because that's the thing that I really like. And then you move from what people would kind of think is like a dreamed career. You're working with NBC Universal, you're doing development work. It's this thing, it's in your wheelhouse. And you're like, I'm going to go dance. So talk to me about why you made that switch. And, and was that the time, because I'm trying to put a chronology here. Was that the time that you're like, I'm going to go dance? And that was when you went to audition and then started to do the Broadway stuff?
Yeah. It all kind of happened.
Why?
Like and again, I wasn't looking for it. I have always wanted to sing, dance, and act. Okay. However, again, growing up in Houston, Texas, and not, Beyonce is only a year older than me. So that means we're working at the same time. She's not somebody I can look up to. So I didn't see an example, right? So from my point of view, people in LA and New York do that. To me, it was just like a dream. And I went to a performing and visual arts middle school. So I was singing and dancing and acting. And we have a huge performing and visual arts high school, but I didn't want to go there because I wanted to have a regular high school experience. Because at the performing and visual arts high school, they didn't have like sports and cheerleading and all, they didn't have all that. So I wanted to like go to, have that kind of experience. So, at that time in my life, I don't realize Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen are from Houston. I don't know that information. All I know is I'm here and I have this talent, but it seems very far-fetched. So even though writing also seems a little far-fetched, I know it's something that I can kind of do on my own, especially looking to be an author at that time, not looking to be a screenwriter. So when I started working at NBC Universal, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. You go to college, you get your degrees, you get a job, right? And so I'm in my job, and one of my friends had gone to a show by Step Africa, which is a international dance company that does stepping and South African dance. And she calls me, not texts me, not emails me. She calls me and she says, "Why aren't you in this dance company?" And my little response to her was, I didn't say adulting because that word wasn't out yet, but I'm like, because I have a salary job and I have student loans to pay, and I'm being an adult. And she was like, "Well, I think you should do it." It was that casual of a conversation. She was like, "Well, I think you should do it." I had heard about Step Africa before because I knew two people in the company, but I had never done any research, had never seen them perform, had no idea what they were about. But the two people in the company who I knew, I trusted. So I said, well, let me just look and see what they do. And it turns out they were doing three things that were very near and dear to me, but I had just never thought about doing them as a career. So one was stepping. I just never thought that you could step for a living. Two was traveling around the world. And three was working with students. I come from a family of educators. So that's what we do. So at the Sci-Fi Channel, I was in a place of transition. I knew that I was ready to move to another studio, production company, network, somewhere. And so when she called,
how did you know that?
I just think it was more so I wanted to be at a place where I watched the content. I know story, understand story, and can work with any stories. But I was just in a place at the age of 28 where I was like, I wanted to work at ABC so badly because I watched all their stuff. So I was just in a place where it's like, I would like to go to ABC. And if I can't go to ABC, then maybe there's somewhere else where I can, just be more connected to the content. So
the concern was, and I apologize for clarity. The concern was that you were working on stories that weren't necessarily, and because you know a story, you can develop them, but they weren't necessarily close to your heart.
Yeah, they weren't close to my heart.
Gotcha.
So I wasn't as invested, So that means it just felt like work that much more, even though it was work I enjoyed, right? So when I researched Step Africa, it just so happened that they had an audition coming up. Like, again, I wasn't looking for it, but it's like, oh, you have an audition coming up. So because I had this mindset of this is how life works, I said, well, I'm going to call my mother and ask her, because if I'm supposed to be adulting, then that's what she's going to tell me, right? I call her and I tell her about the opportunity. And she says to me, and this is before Drake and before YOLO, she says, do you know you only live once? And that was it.
Yep.
So I went to the audition, 75 people auditioned. They chose 3 people. I was one of the people. I chose
hat tip to moms.
I'm out.
Wait, and if I remember correctly, Mom had also sent you that article about a Black TV executive. So again, one more time for Mom.
For Mom. And the crazy thing is, I never told my mother I wanted to write for TV. I never said any of that to her. I don't know why she sent me that article.
What do you mean? She's connected to spirit.
She's connected.
Come on.
But I had never, these are not conversations we had. So it wasn't like, oh, remember, it just randomly. And, this is college back in the very early 2000s. So she sent this in the mail. This was a cutout from Essence magazine that she folded up and put in a letter envelope and sent to me that I opened and was like, what is this? And so, so she just, knows, as mothers do. So because of that, I went to audition. And when I joined the company, I had to move to Washington, D.C. from Los Angeles. And people told me I was crazy. They were like, 1 million people wanted this job. It was kind of like that Devil Wears Prada conversation. 1 million girls would kill for this job. It was that kind of conversation. They were like, what are you doing? Where are you going? But for me, it was a dream come true because I never thought it was something I'd be able to do. I always thought performing was just going to be on the inside of me and I was never going to get to present it, professionally anyway. So when I joined that dance company and I wasn't at a desk, I was like, I don't know when I'm going back to one. So then I got the courage to continue to audition for other things. Because, at first I'm like, I'm going to go, I'll do Step Africa for like a year. And then I'll be back. And then once I started doing it out, and then, it's like, oh,
you're like, nah, we're good.
No,
we're good.
I started going up to New York to audition and ended up booking a couple of first national tours. And then I ended up doing a lot of regional stuff in the DC area. And literally the only reason I left is because I feel like it's my generation's responsibility to be the beginning of generational wealth. We have far too much information. Our parents and grandparents didn't have the information or the access, right? We have both, even if it's still higher, interest rates and all these other things, we still have more access and more information. And I just felt like I can't spend my entire life running after this thing that's not going to pay me what I'm worth. And in musical theater.
Hold on. Stick a pin. Okay, folks that you're listening to this by audio, and because we're doing both the audio and video, listen to what she just said, because I'm going to ask her to repeat it. Because you didn't hear it, you like you superficially heard it. It didn't quite hit your soul yet. So she's going to say that again. Shannan, could you say that again for me, Shannan? You couldn't spend your life what now?
I could not spend my life running after something that wasn't going to pay me what I was worth.
Okay. One more time, because someone in the back.
Somebody in the back is
someone in the back went and they were washing a dish, right? And so they heard part of it. And then, you put your dish down and it clangs. They didn't hear that. One more time for the person in the back. Hold on. You couldn't what?
Not going to spend my life running after something that wasn't going to pay me my worth. Period. And that's why I left musical theater, because I love being on the stage. And I could have stayed on the stage and worked on screenplays on the side and been fine if they would have been paying me my worth. But in musical theater, you do 8 shows a week, and at the end of it, they give you $1.
Not gonna spend it. So we're gonna say that one more time because someone else heard it. It was like listening, and then like just now they got it. Just now. This very moment, they realize that they've been working on a job, right? That values them. Let's be clear.
Yeah, needs
can only afford to value them at a certain ceiling, right? So it's. Listen carefully, my darlings. It's not a matter that you're not doing good work. Okay. It's not a matter that you're not doing work that you're passionate about. Okay. It's not a matter that you're not doing work that has an impact. Okay. It's that you're worth more.
Yeah.
And there comes a point in time when you have to make the decision between your worth and what you think you're worth. Yes. So tell us. So now you've left the place that had the ceiling, right? Not because you didn't love. You still dance, right? You still love it.
I mean, I don't, because I don't have the time to do it. And I'm never going to stand in another audition line ever. If somebody wants me to dance, sing, or act, they'll call my phone. And that's
They're going to invite you.
They're going to invite me. I'm not standing in another audition line. I'm not doing it. But once you start to realize exactly what your worth is, then you have an easier time saying no. So I went into, I believe it was, I don't remember if it was 2018 or 2019, but I declared it on Facebook. This is my year of no. Because I am an overachiever and I am a taskmaster, and everyone in my life knows this. They know that my word is bond. So that means if they need something, they know they can call me and they know I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it with excellence.
With excellence. You didn't even need to say that. With excellence.
And so because of that, I spend a lot of my time helping other people build the things that they need. Now, because I'm a multitasker, I'm also working on my stuff, but I'm splitting my energy, right? So I said, I have to learn how to say no, and also learn that me saying no is not a rejection of my feelings about the person who's asking.
Yes.
Really about me needing to take all of that energy and put it into me. So you want me to say that again? I had to take all of my energy and put it into me. And that even included me stepping down as the executive director of a nonprofit that I started.
And here's the thing, and I'm gonna take this story out a little bit for people who are hearing that and are saying, "Oh my goodness, but the nonprofit was doing great work." But there comes a point in time when you have to stop holding people weak. Right? You have to stop telling a story about people that means that they're weak, that, oh gosh, this person needs me. This thing needs me. And then, oh my gosh, look at the strength. I'm sure whatever that nonprofit was doing, the work is still being done in some way.
Yes. And I gave them the option, that they could continue doing it, or they could decide to not, but that I was going to have to step away. And they decided to continue. So the work is still happening. And I had to realize, like, it's not going to fall apart just because I walk away, but I had to suspend all, I had to send that energy into me.
Right.
I had to get rid of all of the extracurriculars.
So, and here's the thing about that. When you're now focusing on this, fabulous practice, the professional pen, what kind of impact are you seeing done there? So let's talk about that. So now that you have, because I think a lot of people are afraid to make that, because if I stop helping this person, if I stop doing this, and I start focusing on me, when I focus on me, is it going to be worth it? That trade-off, is that trade-off going to be worth it? So talk about, is the trade-off worth it?
Go back to the, paying me what I'm worth part.
Mm-hmm.
So as an entrepreneur, it's hard to figure out what your rates are. As women, as Black people, as a Black woman, it's even harder, because Black women are taught that we are the nurturers of the world and we're supposed to be giving and not receiving, right? So anytime I looked at my rates, I always considered, can people afford that? Which means it took me a long time to go, if they can't afford it, they're not my client, right? And even still, in general, my prices, my rates are probably lower than a lot of people in my field. And I have to reevaluate each year, and I necessary, because I also had to learn that I need to be paid for my time. So now, not only am I being paid for my worth, because what you're getting, what I tell people, I'm charging less and giving you more, period. But now I have to also consider, well, how much time does it take me to do that? How many of them can I actually get done in one day, in 2 days? So I need to be charging for that. So with that being said, going back to, being paid what I'm worth, I have the numbers somewhere and I don't remember what they are, to talk about how much my business has increased, by how many hundreds of percentages of whatever it is that they are. But I will say this, I was in musical theater for 8 years straight. I made more money in 2020 than I did in any of those years, because I decided to focus, right? So if for no other reason, all that time, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And there's been a pandemic.
Yeah, and right.
For when you hear this episode in 2021 or 2025, in case you didn't know, there was a pandemic in 2020 and things were shut down, and she still made more money when she focused.
More money.
Continue.
Running my own business than I did, being in musical theater, and that that didn't happen overnight or anything, but just from the December of 2018 is when I moved here. 2019 was me trying to figure it out, right? What are my rates? What are my services? What am I doing? And in 2020, boom, flourish, made it happen. And just to remind everybody, when I was doing musical theater and dance companies, I was in my 30s. Right. So this is not like, oh, I was in my 20s. It doesn't matter that I was only making $5. Like, no, I was an adult, full on grown person who didn't feel like I can take a trip when I want to. I can go shopping when I want to. I didn't have to have anyone else pay my bills, but I was on assistance. There was no way I was going to make it without food stamps. I was on unemployment every single time a contract ended. Right. And I just felt like I am choosing to put myself in this situation because I'm running after this passion, which was fine for X amount of time. But now just thinking about the financial freedom that I have, like that stress that's been removed because I'm making the money that I should be making, that I deserve to be making. And now I can kind of relax and live my life a little bit. And with that being said, I booked a last minute trip and I'm going to Cancun next weekend. I've never done that before. But I put myself in a position where I can do that. I also put myself in a position where I can work from anywhere. So all I have to do is take my computer, and everything that I'm doing here in Los Angeles, California, I'm going to do in Cancun, Mexico.
Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that fantastic? So with all of that, some of the work that you do. So I'm hoping people are hearing it. It's a matter of moving from chasing the thing that, yes, it makes your heart beat, but is that thing that makes you heartbeat? Is it chasing you back? Is it giving to you what you're giving to it? And so you have to have, and that's not even for me, I don't even know that that's an adult conversation, because we need to, it's being ingrained in children. And I work with teens. And so I make it my business to knock this out of them, but it's ingrained in children that they've got to pay their dues, which means they lose their innocence, they lose their drive, they lose their determination. And that's the thing that sets them like, okay, well, now I gotta grow up and go get a job. No, you've gotta mature and pursue something that understands your value, right?
This is a totally different, conversation, but I feel like it starts in our education system, that we don't spend time honing children's strengths and their interests. So by the time they get out of high school, they really understand
themselves,
right?
Themselves.
And instead of making it seem like, well, you have to do this and you have to go to college and you have to, it's like, look, somebody's child has started a lawn mowing service that he or she does every summer. And that thing can end up being the thing that takes them through their entire lives. They don't necessarily have to go into anything else. If they enjoy it, if they figure out how to run the business of it and the taxes and all that kind of stuff. So now, well, I need to be focused on business if I go to college or if I go to junior college or wherever it is I go. Instead of, a lot of us get into college and we just waste money because most of us are not doing what we got our degree in. Now, that doesn't mean that we didn't learn other skills, because I would go back, I learned how to work with people, team building, deadlines, and, all that great stuff. But as far as knowing what you want to do, there takes more work before you get there.
And also, I think the thing is with that, as we're talking about strengths, part of it also is when you step into whatever education platform, whether it's an institution or a class or a workshop, if you don't come there with an intention and with your own agenda, you won't leave there with any value. So I'm actually in the school system at this point, and one of the first, we were in our first quarter, and at the time of this listening, all 200 of my students have taken a DISC assessment so that they can understand their personality and their strengths and their weaknesses and things like that, because then that helps them set an agenda for my class. And they're like, well, Ms. Street, this is the way, these are the things I'm interested in. Can you help me with this? It helps me be a better teacher, a better speaker, a better whatever, when my students are matching me in intention and agenda. So one of the things I wanted to get to, and my audience is very much listening for this. We always get at least one practicable tactic or strategy. So I've got a couple questions for you. So the first one is this: you've worked with writers and you've worked with winning writers, right? So we know that you've worked with writers who've won competitions, who've gotten agents, and who've been paid for their work, right? So what have you seen has been the difference between a writer and a winning writer?
Yeah. A lot of people are not going to like this, but you got to move to LA. And it doesn't mean you have to stay here forever. But depending upon what kind of writer you want to be, my 3 clients who have won the biggest moved to Los Angeles. And what it says to the rest of the industry is, you mean business, right? You want this. You don't only have the skill, because a lot of people have the skill. A lot of people can write, even if they don't really know what they're doing. A lot of people have a natural, inclination, which is why they want to write in the first place. So the same thing for me. I didn't know what the structure was until somebody told me, but I was already doing it because I have this natural, inclination. And so not only do these people hone their craft, like they're constantly writing, they are constantly getting feedback on their writing and growing from it. Like I almost never have to give the same note twice to these people because they're able to realize that note also is for this script and also for that script and that one. And that's really, as a teacher, that's my job. Like, yes, I want clients and yes, I want your coins, but I'm trying to teach you how to do this. I'm not trying to handicap you to make you think you need me to do it. You don't. I'm here to teach you how to do it. And because you trust me, I'll become a part of your team because we all need a team. But at the end of the day, you will get to a place one day where you don't feel like I have to send this to Shannan before I send it out, because Shannan has done her job in teaching me the craft and teaching me the skill. So I think with these particular writers, not only have they done that part, which everybody always hears, you have to write, you have to learn, you have to blah, blah, blah. But then they took that next step to say, and now I got to leave my comfort zone, because no matter what, the industry is here. It's like saying you want to work in oil and then, moving to DC. Well, that's not where oil is. You know what I mean? It's like saying that you want to be an astronaut, but you're not in Houston. You know what I mean? Or you're not in Florida. It's like you have to go where the industry is. And you come here because this is where the networks are. This is how you meet people. This is how they know you're serious. Because when you get your agent or when someone buys your stuff or you start winning these competitions, they're going to want to send you to meetings. The pandemic happened, so it's happening via Zoom. But had there been no pandemic, you're going into their offices, to meet these people. And so you have to kind of.
So have things changed now that people are doing things virtually?
Yeah, things have changed a little bit because a lot of the studios and stuff still aren't back in their buildings because we can do our jobs from anywhere. Right. You know what I mean? As far as production goes, production doesn't always happen in Los Angeles anyway. A lot of LA production happens in Canada and in Atlanta and in Louisiana. So that's not that big of a deal anyway. And writers aren't a part of the production anyway. They're a part of the development. So it's a little bit more helpful. Now I don't know if it'll stay that way. There are people who don't live in Los Angeles who, for the first time, were able to join writers' rooms because it's all happening on Zoom. But what I've heard from the writers is they don't prefer Zoom. So to me, as soon as the world allows, they'll be back.
They're going to get back.
And
I get that. I've been in a writers group, and there is really nothing like the people around the table and the whiteboard. Yeah. The whiteboard, people around the table. There's really nothing like it. So this has been amazingly enlightening. So we're gonna wrap up, but I have a question for you. So how would you handle a public failure?
I am a person who holds other people accountable a lot. Therefore, I would have to do the same thing for myself, right? It's really admitting it, acknowledging it, and figuring out how you're going to grow from it. I think, ego has taught us that we shouldn't apologize and that we have to be right. And I'm a person who's right a lot. So it's really hard when I'm wrong, right? But I think especially because I have clients, and when you have clients, a lot of people might not like this analogy, but it's kind of like having students. It's kind of like having children, and you are modeling behavior. And if I can accept my public failure, then that just allows them to see that I'm vulnerable. That allows them to see that they can trust that if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. Therefore, they'll want to work with me. So it may sound manipulative to say, well, I'm going to do the thing that I should do because it keeps me business. But that's just it. If you continue to be open enough in your failures, in your winnings, in whatever, like we talked about earlier, transparency, then people are attracted to that. So I would have to look at the public failure as obviously everything happens for a reason. But it's like, look, just take your loss. As the young people say, take your L. That's all you can do is take your L and figure out how to grow from it, because people will respect you more without the excuses, with just saying, hey, I did it. I failed at it. And, we're going to keep it pushing.
Okay. All right. So we're going to wrap up. So any parting words of wisdom?
Parting words of wisdom. Stop chasing dreams and start chasing your reality. It happened.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us, where can we find you? Tell us your socials. Tell us anything we need to know. If people want to learn more about the professional pen, tell us about that.
All of my services and rates on my website, which is www.awriterforyourwriter.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Professional Pen. And you can find me on Twitter and YouTube. I'm going to have a lot of YouTube content come out probably in 2021 because I don't even have time to work on the content, but I am working on it and it's going to be great. But you can find me on Twitter and YouTube at Shannan, SHANNANE, which is my middle initial, Johnson, spelled Johnson.
Awesome. Okay. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate your time. We appreciate the work that you're helping birth into the world. Can't wait to see these stories. We hear all these great stories about your clients and all the things that are going on with them. So I appreciate your time and have a great trip in Cancun.
Yee! Thank you so much for having me. And
You're welcome.
What to do. I don't even know what I'm supposed to pack. I don't know what's supposed to happen.
You'll figure it out. It's Cancun. It'll be fine.
Thank you for tuning in to 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Find us at 10,000women10,000stages.com.